In the autumn of 1547, the kingdom of Valdoria faced its greatest challenge yet. King Edmund III had ruled for 23 years with wisdom and strength, but recent events had shaken the very foundations of his realm. The neighboring kingdom of Astoria had been making aggressive moves along their shared border, and whispers of war filled the palace halls like autumn leaves in a cold wind. Lady Catherine Meridian arrived at the royal court on a gray October morning, her carriage wheels crunching over the fallen leaves that carpeted the cobblestone courtyard. She was the daughter of a minor lord from the eastern provinces, sent to serve as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Isabella. What the court did not know was that Catherine carried with her a secret that could change the fate of both kingdoms forever. The Palace of Valdoria was a magnificent structure of white stone and soaring towers, its windows gleaming like jewels in the morning light. Catherine had never seen anything so grand in her 19 years of life. As she stepped from her carriage, her simple traveling dress of deep blue wool seemed plain against the elaborate costumes of the courtiers who paused to observe her arrival. Their silk gowns rustled like whispered gossip, and their jeweled fingers pointed discreetly in her direction. Queen Isabella received Catherine in her private chambers, a warm room decorated with tapestries depicting scenes of peaceful countryside life. The queen was a woman of 40 years, still beautiful despite the weight of crown and responsibility that had aged her beyond her years. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elaborate style, held by a golden circlet studded with sapphires that matched her kind but weary eyes. "Welcome to our court, Lady Catherine," the queen said, her voice carrying the refined accent of the royal family. "Your father wrote to me of your intelligence and discretion. These are qualities I value highly in these troubled times." Catherine curtsied deeply, her heart racing with nervousness and the weight of her hidden purpose. "Your Majesty honors me with your trust. I pledge to serve you faithfully in all things." What Queen Isabella did not know was that Catherine's father had not simply sent his daughter to court for advancement. Hidden within the false bottom of Catherine's jewelry box was a letter written in the hand of Prince Marcus of Astoria, the enemy kingdom's heir. The letter contained a proposal that could prevent the looming war, but it was a proposal so dangerous and unprecedented that it could also destroy both royal families if discovered. As the days passed, Catherine settled into the rhythm of court life. She helped the queen dress each morning, attended formal dinners where the conversation was as carefully crafted as the elaborate dishes served on golden plates, and participated in the endless round of ceremonies and entertainments that filled the royal calendar. She observed the key players in the court drama that unfolded around her. Lord Chancellor William Blackwood was the king's most trusted advisor, a man in his 50s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. He had served the crown for over 20 years and was known for his unwavering loyalty and brilliant political mind. However, Catherine noticed that he often spoke in hushed tones with certain nobles, and his expression grew troubled whenever news arrived from the border regions. Sir James Hertford, the captain of the Royal Guard, was a different sort of man entirely. Tall and broad-shouldered with sandy hair and honest brown eyes, he had earned his position through courage and skill rather than noble birth. Catherine found herself drawn to his straightforward manner and genuine concern for the kingdom's welfare. Unlike the other courtiers, he seemed to care little for political games and focused entirely on his duty to protect the royal family. The court was also home to various nobles with their own agendas. Duke Richard Ashford controlled vast lands in the north and commanded a private army of considerable size. His loyalty to the crown had never been questioned, but Catherine sensed an ambition in him that went beyond simple service. Countess Elena Ravencroft was known for her beauty and her network of spies that extended throughout the kingdom and beyond its borders. She collected secrets like other women collected jewelry, and her smile never quite reached her calculating green eyes. As Catherine navigated these dangerous waters, she began to understand the complex web of alliances and rivalries that governed court life. Every conversation had hidden meanings, every gesture was analyzed for signs of favor or disfavor, and every friendship could quickly turn into enmity if circumstances changed. It was a world where survival depended on wit, caution, and the ability to read the intentions of others. The letter she carried seemed to burn like fire in its hiding place. Prince Marcus had written that he possessed information about a planned betrayal within the Valdorian court, someone close to the king who was secretly working to ensure that war would come regardless of any peaceful negotiations. In exchange for this information, he proposed a secret meeting to discuss terms that could prevent thousands of deaths on both sides. Catherine knew that revealing this letter to the wrong person could brand her as a traitor and cost her life. But keeping it secret while people she was growing to care about remained in danger felt equally impossible. She watched Queen Isabella struggle with worry for her people, saw the exhaustion in King Edmund's eyes as he wrestled with impossible decisions, and felt her resolve to help them strengthen with each passing day. The tension in the court grew palpable as reports arrived of Asturian troops massing near the border. King Edmund held council meetings that stretched late into the night, his advisors arguing over strategies for defense or negotiation. Catherine often served wine and refreshments during these meetings, her presence so expected that the men spoke freely in front of her, as if she were invisible. It was during one such meeting that Catherine first heard Duke Ashford speak with surprising passion about the necessity of striking first against Astoria. "We cannot wait for them to choose the time and place of attack, Your Majesty," he argued, his fist striking the table for emphasis. "Our honor and our survival demand that we act while we still have the advantage of position." Lord Chancellor Blackwood disagreed, his voice calm but firm. "War should be our last resort, Your Grace. The cost in lives and treasure would be enormous, and victory is far from certain. We should explore every avenue for peace before we commit to a path that will bring suffering to countless innocent people." Catherine noticed that Sir James Hertford remained silent during these debates, but his expression grew more troubled with each passing day. As captain of the guard, he would be responsible for protecting the royal family if war came, but she suspected his concerns went beyond mere duty. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after Catherine's arrival, during the feast celebrating the harvest season. The great hall was filled with music and laughter, the long tables groaning under the weight of roasted meats, fresh breads, and barrels of the kingdom's finest wine. Nobles danced in their finest clothes while minstrels sang songs of heroic deeds and ancient glory. Catherine was serving the queen's table when she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. Countess Ravenscroft was speaking quietly to a visiting lord from the borderlands, but Catherine's sharp hearing caught words that confirmed her worst fears about the letter she carried. "The king's response to the latest border incident will determine everything," the countess said, her voice barely audible above the festivities. "Some believe that a strong reaction now could prevent a larger conflict later. Others prefer to let events unfold naturally, knowing that the outcome will serve their long-term interests regardless." The visiting lord nodded meaningfully. "And you believe this information will reach the right ears at the right time?" "I am certain of it," the countess replied with a smile that sent chills down Catherine's spine. "By tomorrow evening, His Majesty will have all the encouragement he needs to make the decision that destiny demands." Catherine realized with growing horror that the betrayal Prince Marcus had warned about was already in motion. Someone in the court was manipulating events to ensure that war would come, and King Edmund was being guided toward decisions that would make conflict inevitable. The secret meeting Prince Marcus proposed might be the only chance to prevent a catastrophe that would consume both kingdoms. That night, Catherine made her decision. She would find a way to arrange the meeting that Prince Marcus had requested, but she needed help from someone she could trust completely. As she lay in her narrow bed in the servants' quarters, she thought of Sir James Hertford and his honest eyes. Tomorrow, she would risk everything by revealing her secret to the one person in court who seemed to care more about protecting the kingdom than advancing his own interests. The candle beside her bed flickered in the draft from her window, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. Outside, she could hear the night watch calling the hour, their voices echoing through the silent corridors of the palace. Soon, she would discover whether her gamble would save the kingdom or destroy everything she had come to care about. Dawn broke gray and cold over the palace as Catherine made her way to the practice yards where Sir James Hertford trained with his guards each morning. She had barely slept, her mind churning with plans and possibilities, each more dangerous than the last. The weight of the hidden letter seemed to have grown heavier overnight, and she knew that today would determine not just her own fate, but potentially the future of two kingdoms. The clash of steel on steel rang through the morning air as Sir James worked through sword forms with 3 of his most experienced guards. Catherine watched from the shadows of an archway, admiring the controlled power of his movements and the way his men looked to him with obvious respect and trust. When the session ended and the guards dispersed to their various duties, she stepped forward into the pale sunlight. "Sir James," she called softly, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Might I have a word with you in private?" He turned, surprise flickering across his features as he wiped sweat from his brow with a cloth. "Lady Catherine, it is unusual to find one of the Queen's ladies in the training yards at such an early hour. Is something amiss?" Catherine glanced around nervously, ensuring they were alone before stepping closer. "What I have to say could be considered treason by some, but I believe it may be the only way to prevent a war that will destroy countless lives. Will you hear me out?" Sir James studied her face intently, his brown eyes searching for signs of deception or madness. What he saw there must have convinced him of her sincerity, because he nodded slowly. "There is a small chamber adjacent to the armory where we can speak without fear of being overheard. Follow me." The chamber was sparse and functional, containing only a table, 2 chairs, and racks of weapons along the stone walls. Sir James closed the door firmly and turned to face her, his expression serious and attentive. "Speak freely, my lady. I give you my word that whatever you tell me will go no further without your consent." Catherine took a deep breath and began her story, starting with her father's true reasons for sending her to court and ending with the letter hidden in her chambers. She watched Sir James's expression shift from skepticism to amazement to grim understanding as she revealed the scope of the conspiracy they faced. "You believe Prince Marcus is sincere in his desire to prevent war?" Sir James asked when she had finished. "I do," Catherine replied firmly. "His letter contains details about our court that could only have come from someone with intimate access to the King's Council. If he merely wanted to deceive us, he would not have revealed the existence of a traitor among our own people." Sir James was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant as he considered the implications. "The person you overheard Countess Ravenscroft speaking with, did you recognize him?" Catherine nodded. "Lord Hampton of Greystone, whose lands border Astoria. I have seen him in private conference with Duke Ashford on several occasions since my arrival." "Ashford?" Sir James's voice carried a note of troubled recognition. "He has been most vocal in pushing for immediate military action. If he is working with Ravenscroft and others to manipulate the king's decisions." He trailed off, the full horror of the situation settling over him. "We need to find a way to arrange the meeting Prince Marcus requested," Catherine said urgently. "But it must be done in complete secrecy. If the conspirators discover what we are attempting, they will move quickly to eliminate us and ensure that war becomes inevitable." Sir James stood and began pacing the small room, his mind working through the practical challenges they faced. "The prince suggests meeting at the old watchtower on Raven's Hill. It is a day's ride from the palace, in territory that is technically neutral ground between our kingdoms. I know the location well. It offers good visibility in all directions and multiple escape routes if needed. You would be willing to accompany me?" Catherine asked, hardly daring to hope. "I have sworn an oath to protect this kingdom and its people," Sir James replied firmly. "If there is even a chance that this meeting could prevent unnecessary bloodshed, then it is my duty to see it through. But we must be extremely careful about how we proceed." They spent the next hour planning their approach. Sir James would request permission from the king to conduct a routine patrol of the border regions, taking a small group of his most trusted men. Catherine would claim illness and remain in her chambers, giving her the opportunity to slip away unnoticed. They would meet at a tavern in the village of Millbrook, halfway to their destination, before continuing together to Raven's Hill. "There is one more thing we must consider," Sir James said as their planning session drew to a close. "If this meeting goes badly, if it is a trap, or if we are discovered, both of our lives will be forfeit. Are you certain you wish to take this risk?" Catherine met his gaze steadily. "I have watched Queen Isabella weep for fear of what war will bring to her people. I have seen King Edmund age years in the few weeks since I arrived at court. If there is a chance to spare them and thousands of others from such suffering, then no risk is too great." Sir James smiled for the first time that morning, an expression that transformed his serious features and made Catherine's heart skip unexpectedly. Then, we are in agreement. We ride in 3 days, when the moon is dark and travel will be easier to conceal. The next 3 days passed with agonizing slowness. Catherine maintained her normal duties while watching carefully for any signs that their plan had been discovered. She noticed that Countess Ravencroft seemed particularly interested in her activities, asking seemingly casual questions about her health and her adjustment to court life. Duke Ashford, meanwhile, continued to press the king for aggressive action against Astoria, his arguments growing more urgent with each passing day. On the evening before their planned departure, Catherine was serving wine at a small dinner party in the Queen's private chambers when she overheard a conversation that nearly made her drop the crystal goblet she was carrying. Lord Chancellor Blackwood was speaking quietly to Queen Isabella about intelligence reports from the border. "The situation grows more serious by the hour, Your Majesty," he said, his voice heavy with concern. "Our spies report that Astrian forces are massing in preparation for what appears to be a major offensive. Duke Ashford believes we have perhaps a week before they strike." Queen Isabella's face paled. "Has the king made his decision about our response?" "His Majesty meets with his council tomorrow morning to finalize our strategy," Blackwood replied. "I fear that circumstances may leave us little choice but to mobilize our armies and prepare for the worst." Catherine felt her knees weaken as she realized how little time they had left. If the king committed to military action tomorrow, it would be nearly impossible to reverse course even if their meeting with Prince Marcus was successful. She managed to complete her duties without betraying her inner turmoil, but her mind raced with the implications of what she had heard. That night, she sent a coded message to Sir James using a servant boy she had befriended. The message was simple: "The patient grows worse. Treatment cannot be delayed." She could only hope he would understand that they needed to move faster than planned. Sir James's reply came within the hour. "Understood. Dawn patrol has been advanced. Departure immediate upon receipt." Catherine spent the remaining hours before dawn in final preparations. She dressed in her plainest riding clothes and packed a small bag with essential supplies. The letter from Prince Marcus she sewed into the lining of her cloak, ensuring it would remain hidden even if she were searched. As the first gray light appeared at her window, she made her way through the palace's servant passages to a side entrance where Sir James waited with 2 horses and a single guard. "This is Thomas Garrett," Sir James explained quietly, indicating the young guardsman who held the horse's reins. "He has served with me for 5 years and has my complete trust. I have told him only that we ride on a mission of great importance to the kingdom." Thomas nodded respectfully to Catherine. "My lady, Sir James has instructed me to guard your safety with my life. You may depend upon my discretion and loyalty." They rode out from the palace as the sun crested the horizon, their horses' hooves muffled by the morning mist that clung to the ground. Catherine felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration as they left the familiar walls behind and entered the uncertain world beyond. Whatever happened at Ravenshill, there would be no turning back from the path they had chosen. The journey to Millbrook took most of the morning, their route winding through forests of oak and ash whose leaves had turned brilliant shades of gold and scarlet in the autumn air. They spoke little, each lost in their own thoughts about what lay ahead. Catherine found herself stealing glances at Sir James as he rode beside her, admiring the confident way he handled his horse and the alert manner in which he scanned their surroundings for potential threats. At Millbrook, they paused only long enough to rest and water their horses before continuing toward Ravenshill. The landscape grew more rugged as they traveled, rolling farmland giving way to rocky hills and dense woodlands. The old watchtower appeared on the horizon as the sun reached its zenith, a crumbling stone structure perched on the highest point of the hill like a sentinel from a bygone age. "There," Sir James said, pointing toward a copse of trees near the base of the hill. "2 horses, just as the prince promised. It appears he has kept his word about coming alone." Catherine's heart began to race as they approached the designated meeting place. Everything they had worked for, everything they had risked, would be decided in the next few hours. As they dismounted and made their way up the winding path to the watchtower, she whispered a silent prayer that their desperate gamble would somehow succeed in preventing the catastrophe that seemed to grow more inevitable with each passing moment. The figure waiting for them in the shadow of the ancient tower would either prove to be their salvation or the architect of their destruction. Catherine clutched the hidden letter against her chest and prepared to discover which it would be. Prince Marcus of Astoria was not what Catherine had expected. Standing in the shadow of the crumbling watchtower, he appeared younger than his 25 years, with dark hair and intelligent green eyes that reminded her unsettlingly of Countess Ravencroft. He was dressed simply in brown leather and wool, without any of the elaborate finery that marked his royal status. But there was something in his bearing that spoke of authority and careful planning. "Lady Catherine, Sir James," he said, stepping forward with a slight bow. "I thank you both for the considerable risk you have taken in coming here. I pray that our meeting will justify the danger to all involved." Sir James remained tense, his hand resting casually on his sword hilt as he studied the prince and the surrounding terrain. "Your Highness, you wrote of information regarding a betrayal within our court. Before we proceed further, we must know what proof you can offer of these claims." Prince Marcus nodded approvingly, direct and to the point. "I appreciate such honesty." He reached into his cloak and withdrew a leather portfolio, opening it to reveal several documents. "These are copies of correspondence between certain members of your court and agents working for my brother, Prince Frederick. Frederick believes that war between our kingdoms is inevitable and seeks to ensure that it happens on terms favorable to Astoria." Catherine felt her blood grow cold as Sir James examined the papers. "Your brother is not working with your knowledge or approval?" "Quite the contrary," Prince Marcus replied grimly. "Frederick acts without the knowledge of our father, King Roland, who, like your King Edmund, desires to avoid unnecessary conflict. My brother has cultivated a network of supporters on both sides of the border who share his belief that war will ultimately benefit their various interests." Sir James looked up from the documents, his expression grave. "These letters bear the seal of Duke Ashford and are signed in his hand. They detail plans to provoke border incidents that would force King Edmund to respond militarily. Ashford is one of 3 key conspirators in your court," Prince Marcus confirmed. "The others are Countess Ravencroft, who serves as the coordinator of intelligence between the 2 kingdoms, and Lord Hampton, who controls territory vital to the planned operations." Catherine stepped forward, her mind racing as pieces of the puzzle fell into place. "The conversation I overheard at the harvest feast. Countess Ravencroft was speaking of manipulating the king's response to border incidents. She was coordinating with Frederick's agents to ensure that events would unfold according to their timeline." "Exactly," Prince Marcus said. "My brother's plan calls for a series of escalating provocations that will culminate in a major incident within the next few days. Once your king commits to military action, the conspiracy will ensure that peaceful resolution becomes impossible." Sir James studied the prince intently. "And what do you propose we do with this information?" "If we simply present these documents to the king, the conspirators will claim they are forgeries designed to sow discord within our ranks." Prince Marcus smiled for the first time since their meeting began, but it was not a pleasant expression. "That is where the true value of our alliance becomes apparent. I am not merely offering information, Sir James. I am offering to help you expose the conspiracy in a manner that will leave no room for doubt or denial." He moved to a fallen stone that served as a makeshift table and spread out a detailed map of the border region between the 2 kingdoms. "Tomorrow night, Duke Ashford plans to lead a raid against one of our border settlements. The attack will be disguised to appear as though it was conducted by Astorian forces, giving your king the provocation he needs to declare war. However, if we can arrange for the right people to witness Ashford in the act." Catherine understood immediately. "You want to catch him in the act of staging a false attack. But that would require us to allow innocent people to be put in danger. The settlement Ashford plans to target is actually a decoy," Prince Marcus explained. "My agents learned of the plan several days ago, and we evacuated the real inhabitants while replacing them with my own soldiers in disguise. Ashford will find himself attacking what he believes is an Astorian village, but in reality, he will be assaulting a carefully prepared trap." Sir James traced the planned route on the map with his finger. "This is remarkably detailed intelligence. How can you be certain that Ashford will follow this exact plan?" "Because my brother's agents have been feeding him information designed to make this particular target appear irresistibly tempting," Prince Marcus replied. "The false village appears to be lightly defended and contains what Ashford believes are supplies crucial to Astoria's military preparations. He cannot resist such an opportunity. The scope and sophistication of the plan began to dawn on Catherine. You have been planning this for weeks, haven't you? The letter you sent, my presence at court, even my overhearing that conversation, none of it was coincidence. Prince Marcus inclined his head respectfully. Your reputation for intelligence was not exaggerated, my lady. Yes, I have been working for months to position the right people in the right places to expose this conspiracy. Your father's loyalty to peace made him a natural ally, and your own qualities made you ideal for the role you have played. Sir James's expression had grown thunderous. You have been manipulating us, using us as pawns in your political game. How do we know this entire elaborate scenario is not simply a more complex version of the very deception you claim to be exposing? Because, Prince Marcus said quietly, I am willing to stake my own life on its success. Tomorrow night, I will be personally present at the false village, along with witnesses from both kingdoms who can testify to what they observe. If this is a deception on my part, I will be the first to pay the price for its failure. Catherine studied the prince's face, searching for signs of deception or hidden motivation. What she saw there was exhaustion, determination, and something that looked very much like genuine grief. Why? She asked softly. Why go to such elaborate lengths when you could simply allow the war your brother desires? For a moment, Prince Marcus's carefully controlled facade cracked, revealing the pain beneath. Because I have seen what war does to innocent people, Lady Catherine. 3 years ago, I led a military campaign against rebels in our southern provinces. The victory was swift and decisive, but the cost. He paused, struggling with memories that clearly haunted him. Entire villages destroyed, families torn apart, children left orphaned and starving. I swore then that I would never again allow such suffering if there was any alternative. Sir James's hostility began to soften as he recognized the sincerity in the prince's voice. And if we succeed in exposing the conspiracy, what then? Your brother will still have supporters, and there will be others who prefer war to peace. Then, we will have removed the immediate threat and gained time to build a more lasting solution, Prince Marcus replied. My father has long desired a formal treaty with Valdoria, one that would establish clear boundaries and mechanisms for resolving disputes peacefully. With the conspiracy exposed and the warmongers discredited, such an agreement becomes possible. Catherine felt a spark of hope beginning to grow within her chest. You believe we can not only prevent this war, but establish a foundation for permanent peace between our kingdoms? I believe we can try, Prince Marcus said simply. The alternative is to allow thousands of innocent people to die for the ambitions of a few power-hungry individuals. Surely that is a risk worth taking. The three of them spent the next several hours working out the details of their plan. Sir James would return to the palace and report to King Edmund that his patrol had discovered suspicious activity near the border. He would request permission to position observers at strategic locations, ostensibly to gather intelligence about Astrian troop movements. Meanwhile, Catherine would continue her duties at court while watching for any signs that the conspiracy was aware of their activities. There is one final element we must address, Prince Marcus said as the sun began to sink toward the horizon. If this plan succeeds, both of our kingdoms will need representatives who can negotiate the terms of a lasting peace. People who understand the full scope of what we have accomplished and who have the trust of their respective rulers. Catherine felt her cheeks grow warm as she realized what he was suggesting. You believe, Sir James, and I should serve as those representatives? I believe you have both already proven yourselves capable of placing the greater good above personal interest, Prince Marcus replied. That is a rare quality in court politics, and one that will be essential in the delicate negotiations ahead. As they prepared to part ways, Sir James clasped the prince's hand in a gesture of respect. Your Highness, if this plan succeeds, you will have prevented countless deaths and suffering. History will remember your courage, even if your name must remain secret for now. Prince Marcus smiled, and this time the expression was genuine and warm. History can keep its remembrance, Sir James. I will be content knowing that children in both our kingdoms will grow up in peace rather than war. The ride back to the palace took place mostly in darkness, but Catherine found that her fear had been replaced by determination. Tomorrow would bring the culmination of everything they had worked for, and the fate of two kingdoms would hang in the balance. As the familiar towers of the palace appeared through the morning mist, she offered a silent prayer for strength and wisdom in the crucial hours ahead. The Game of Thrones was entering its final phase, and she could only hope that when the pieces stopped moving, peace would emerge triumphant over the ambitions of those who preferred the profits of war to the welfare of their people. The crown's secret was about to be revealed, and, with it, the true test of whether love of country could overcome love of power. In her chambers that morning, as she prepared to face another day of careful deception and hidden purposes, Catherine reflected on how much she had changed since arriving at court just a few weeks before. She had come as a naive young woman seeking to serve her kingdom, but she had discovered that true service sometimes required actions that bordered on treason. The letter that had started this entire adventure now rested safely in Sir James's possession, its dangerous secrets soon to be revealed to the one person who could act upon them decisively. King Edmund would learn the truth before another sun set, and then they would discover whether their elaborate gamble had saved two kingdoms or doomed them all.